Right, hi guys. Today we're going to look at factorising a quadratic. Scary, I know, but we've done the expanding bit. So now what I want to do is work in reverse. Now you have seen it before, so hopefully this is just an opportunity for you to practice. So remember what you got to do when we factorise. We put things into brackets. Usually, when we've got a number and when we've got an x squared term, there is going to be two brackets that it can go into, and we've got to decide what's the number bit really. That's the main bit that we need to look at. Now the key things to remember is I'm going to have an x value that goes in here, and there's going to be a number term that goes in here, and then we've got to consider, is this a plus and a minus? Is this a plus and a minus? Okay, plus or a minus. So let's start looking at each individual term in our quadratic and decide how can we get this if we multiply two brackets together. So to get my x squared term, surely I must have multiplied an x by an x. So that straight away tells me that we are going to have an x in here and an x in here. Okay, so we know if I was to multiply out these brackets, I would get my x squared. And that's the first thing that we need to remember. Right, the next step is, what are these two numbers going to be? And what are the signs going to be? Are they going to be a plus and a plus and a minus, or a minus and a minus? Okay, there could be there's three different options. So the way we do that is, if I had two numbers, they would multiply. If I expanded this bracket using my grid method, because remember, if I had a grid method, I would have x and a number, x and a number. These two numbers would multiply to make this number, and this number is the one that goes here, and that's your 20. So what I'm looking for is a pair of numbers that multiply to make a plus 20. So let's just think about those numbers that multiply to make plus 20. Right, just think about the numbers that multiply to make 20. So 1 and 20, 2 and 10, 3 doesn't go into 20, 4 and 5, and there's no other pair. Okay, once you get to roughly the same number, you're only going to be swapping them over and going back again. Yes, you've got 5 times 4, and you've got 10 times 2, and you've got 20 times 1, but you don't need to do that because you've already got that pair. So which of these pairs of numbers, the next thing is, now that I've got my pairs of numbers, to make a plus 20, they must either both be positive or both be negative. Now the next step is to look at whether they're both positive or negative is this number that's in front of the x. Remember, I would be multiplying these numbers by x and then adding them together. If these were both negative, this sign in front of this number would be negative. If these were both positive, this sign in front of this number would both be positive, and that's what it is. So therefore, both these numbers must be positive, so we must have pluses in my brackets. Now, which two numbers out of these pairs will add together to make 12? That's what my next step is. I need to look at these pairs of numbers and decide which of them add together to make 12, and I think it's quite clear. 1 and 20 add together to make 21, not 12. 4 and 5 add together to make 9, not 12, but 2 and 10 add together to make 12. So one of my brackets is going to be plus 2, and one of my brackets is going to be plus 10. Now you can check this by doing all the multiplying yourself. If I was to put this in a table form and expand these brackets, I would get my x squared, I would get my 2x, and I would get my plus 10x. That's not 0, that's 2 times 10, which is 20. And then if I were to simplify this, I'd get x squared, I'd get 12x, and I'd get 20, which is exactly what I had. So I know I've taken a long time to explain this, but hopefully the next two examples, I'll do it quickly, we'll figure out what we're doing, and then you can have a practice on the worksheet that's on Show My Homework. So the first step was look for the numbers that multiply to make the number on their own. That was what I did here, pairs of numbers. Then I said which of these pairs add together, combine to make this number in front of the x. That was a plus 12. So the numbers that combined to make plus 12 was a 2 and a 10. Then all I did was I said, look, x squared is made by x and x, so that's in one bracket each, and then the 2 and the 10 got put next to it with the right signs. So let's do an example. Let's do example B. So first and foremost, let's write out our brackets. I know to make my x squared I've got to have an x and an x. Then I've got to decide, which sign goes in. Well, I know I'm getting a plus when I multiply these two numbers together, but I'm getting a minus when I add them together. So I'm going to have to think about that in a minute. So what I firstly need to do is these two numbers will multiply to make 28. So what pairs of numbers multiply to make 28? 1 and 28, 2 and 14, 3 doesn't, 4 and 7. Now, to make a plus 28, they could either be both be positive or both be negative. They must add to make a negative 11. So they must both be negative. A minus times a minus makes a plus, and a minus plus a minus makes a minus. Okay, because they're both negative. Now, which of these pairs will combine to make minus 11? These two combine to make minus 29. These two combine to make minus 16, but these two combine to make minus 11. So we're going to have minus 4, minus 7. Right, hopefully that's starting to make sense. All I've got to do, take this number, look for the pairs of numbers, decide on the signs that are in front, and then put them in the brackets. Okay, so the next example, x squared minus 3x minus 10. So I'm looking for, well, let's just draw out the brackets. To make this x squared, I must have an x and an x. That's the first thing. So I can ignore that x squared now. Now I need two numbers that multiply together to make minus 10. So I've got 1 and 10. I've got 2 and 5. One's got to be negative and the other one's got to be positive. So I could have a minus 1 and a positive 10. I could have a minus 2 and a positive 5. But I could have it the other way round as well. 1 and 10, 2 and 5. I could have it where the minus is in front of the 10 and the minus is in front of the 5. So what I do now is I take these pairs of numbers. I've got 1, 2, 3, 4 pairs. Which of those pairs will add together, combine together to make a minus 3? Well, minus 1 and 10 will get me a positive 9. Minus 2 and 5 will get me a positive 3, not a negative 3. 1 and minus 10 will get me a minus 9, and 2 and minus 5 will get me a minus 3. That's the one I'm looking for. Okay, so we've got a positive 2 and a negative 5. And that's my two numbers that I put in my brackets. Right, hopefully that's pretty, you're getting there. Alright, so the first set of questions I'd like you to have a go at, they're just with the x squares. Now, if you've done those and you've still got a bit of time left and you want to challenge yourself, this is what I'd like you to look at, the other questions that are on the sheet. This one is even easier. These are, looking at this first term, these are all to do with the difference of things that are squared. X squared is a squared thing. 49 is a squared number. 4 is a squared number. X squared is a squared thing. 64 is a square number. 25 is a square number. 9 is a square number. Y squared is a squared thing. Okay, so if you don't want to crack on with this yet and you want to come back to it, pause it now, maybe rewind, watch the examples again, and then have a go at the questions. But if you want to move on and you want to do something that's a bit more challenging, maybe you want to watch this. So, this is so easy. We take the square root of both things and we just put them in two brackets. The square root of x squared is x. The square root of 49 is 7. The only thing we do now is we put a plus and a minus in the brackets and we're done. Difference of two squares. That's what this is called. Okay, has to be a plus and a minus because then it cancels out that x term that we don't have. Okay, I'll get a minus 7x and a plus 7x, means they cancel out. Okay, so looking at the next one, easy peasy, difference of two squares. What's the square root of 4? Well, that's 2. What's the square root of x squared? That's x. So I get 2x in both brackets. What's the square root of 64? That's 8. So I get an 8 in both brackets. Don't forget the plus and the minus. Doesn't matter which way round you do it, but don't forget the plus and the minus. Next one, last and final one. 2 brackets. 2 squared terms. What's the square root of 25? That's 5. So we put that in both brackets. Square root of 9 is 3. Square root of y squared is y. So we put 3y in both brackets. Don't forget plus and the minus. Trust me, it is that simple. Whenever you get a question like this, you don't need to worry about all the workings. You just need to crack on and just factorise it, okay? Get the correct factorisation and you'll get all the marks for that question. Right, have a go at the worksheet. Mainly using these, alright? Come back to these, watch these again, do your best, and I think what we'll do is we'll do a little bit of practice with all the algebra we've done this week, and we'll do that on Friday. Okay, so expect a little revision sheet on stuff we've done. Alright, and I'll speak to you soon. Take care, guys.